After a pretty eventful 2022 offseason, the Atlanta Hawks have been pretty much on a roll. Last offseason, they traded for DeJounte Murray, trading multiple first round picks and a couple key contributors, but so far, the Hawks have looked really good. Right now, at the time of the recording, they're 10-6, and they're the third seed in the Eastern Conference. Just last year, they were in the play-in tournament, fighting for their lives in the play-in tournament, and even when they won the last play-in tournament game, they still pretty much lost in 5 games against the Miami Heat, and it wasn't really even a close series. And the Hawks knew they had to make another move. So getting DeJounte Murray, and there were a lot of questions at the start of the year. How would DeJounte Murray fit on this team? Would Trae Young be willing to move off the ball? How will DeJounte Murray not being the best shooter? And yes, his defense would definitely help, but overall, would it be a good fit? And a lot of these questions have been answered so far, and the Hawks have been quite on a roll, and it's going to be interesting to see how they perform in the rest of the season. So far, in about 16 games, 17 games into the season, the Hawks are 16th in offense and 13th in defense. And this is actually not bad. I mean, they commit the least amount of turnovers and they're the sixth highest pace, which I guess makes sense for this pretty young team. And overall, I think we have to start with their defense, and their defense has been really impressive. They have still Clint Capella, and although Trae Young is, of course, one of the worst defenders in the NBA, they've really improved their perimeter defense. You have DeJounte Murray, who made an all-defensive team. DeAndre Hunter has a lot of length and is a really good defender. Clint Capella, Onyeka Okongwu. And yes, you have some players like Trae Young, John Collins, who aren't really the best defenders. The Hawks have slowly built a solid defensive team, and also Nate McMillan is a pretty good defensive coach. And now their offense, I mean, when you have the offensive firepower of Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, and John Collins, you're going to expect this team to be at least solid offensively, and I still think that they can take another leap. DeJounte is still new to this team, and there's still going to be some growing pains, but so far, it's worked really well. I mean, yes, Trae Young hasn't been like Steph Curry off the ball, but we see him having some pin down screens for him, and offense has been a lot easier for him. So far, Trae is averaging about 27 points and 9 assists. DeJounte is averaging 21, 6, and 7. And another key player is DeAndre Hunter, and he's really stepped up as a third option. I remember in that Heat series, DeAndre Hunter played really well, and although he really hasn't been healthy for pretty much a large majority of his career, I still believe in DeAndre Hunter. Coming out of college, people saw him as the 3-and-D player and a safe pick, and especially after his second season, he really proved that he can do more than just being a 3-and-D player. He can shoot off the dribble, his three-point shot has improved, and he's been pretty injury prone in his second and third season, but he got a contract extension with this team, and I still really like DeAndre Hunter's future. He's emerged himself as a third scoring option, and I think it's definitely a good thing alongside Trae, who's, of course, everyone knows how good Trae Young will be. But when we saw in that Heat series, when he was getting double teamed, having all these physical players on him, you need other people to step up. And I think that's when getting DeJounte, DeAndre Hunter, and some other players really helps his team. And going back to DeJounte, I mean, DeJounte is, of course, an amazing talent. We saw him make the All-Star team last year. He's a triple-double machine, and his jump shot has also been really impressive. He's been making spot-up threes, off-the-dribble threes, one-dribble pull-up threes, and it's really been impressive. He, of course, has that mid-range, and he has that mid-range in his bag. But overall, you really like to see Murray improve his game, and he's been doing that so far. Especially with Trae missing a couple games, DeJounte has been there. Last season, pretty much for Trae Young's whole career, if he wasn't playing, the Hawks offense was really bad, and adding another secondary ball handler who can pretty much run an offense like he did in San Antonio is a pretty much big acquisition. Even when he's with Trae, he's of course hasn't been as ball dominant as he was with the Spurs, but still DeJounte I think is a really good player, and honestly the fit's been a lot better than I thought. And then the big question mark is John Collins. And I mean, it's kind of disappointing. I mean, just a couple years ago, we saw John Collins average 21 points, 10 rebounds, over 40% from three. Like, that's really good numbers. And yes, the Hawks are not very good, but like, still, especially with Lloyd Pierce as their coach, he was pretty much a big part of their offense. And even when Nate McMillan took over, he had so many spurts where he was making threes, he was dunking on Joel Embiid, And although, yes, his defense is pretty lackluster, it's pretty surprising to see John Collins be this bad. So far, he's only averaging 12 points, which is one of his worst years of his career, and only 8 rebounds. And these numbers are not what you expect from pretty much he has a max contract, and it's not good. I mean, we've seen some trade rumors about the Utah Jazz, the Phoenix Suns, and honestly, there's been so many years of John Collins trade rumors. Even when he was a free agent a couple years ago, people were like, should they trade him? Like, should they really pay him that much? And they overall hesitantly gave him the bag, but still, like, he doesn't really seem happy. And I really think that if he goes to a new system like Utah, Phoenix, I really think he could thrive more than he has with the Hawks. And also Clint Capella, I mean, he's only averaging like 10 points, 10 rebounds, and especially in that, I still remember in that 2020 season where they made the conference finals, Clint Capella was like their second most important player. He was the defensive anchor. He was getting a bunch of lobs. He was averaging like 16 points a game. And ever since that, yes, he's had some injury problems, but like he's just been on the decline. I mean, his defense hasn't been as good. His offense hasn't been as good too. And yes, he's not like a Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, but still, he still gets a lot of points in the flow of the offense, and it really hasn't been there as much. And I really want to see maybe the Hawks put more of an emphasis on their big men. Of course, they're a very like guard heavy offense with Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, probably a top 10 backcourt at least in the NBA. But still, you have John Collins who can give you 29, Clint Capella who is a really good defender when healthy and is a good lob option. But like, it's interesting because they have a pretty overall, I would say on paper, a good lineup. You have Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, Clint Capella. And if you saw it on paper, you would think that's a good blend of offense with Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, and defense with DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, and Clint Capella. But I mean, it's been working pretty well, of course. DeJounte is, of course, such a huge acquisition, but still, I think that they should move John Collins. Now, you, of course, have to get the best offer for him because you can't just lowball for someone as good as John Collins, even though he's been really disappointing this season. But I don't really know. I mean, if they can get another 4 who's maybe a good defender, maybe another shooter, I think that would be really good. And maybe the Jazz would be willing to give up some of their role players that are playing really well. The Suns, maybe they'll give up like, I don't know, Dario Saric, Jay Crowder, a first round pick, something like that. And I think that the Hawks still have some options. Now, they of course don't have their first round pick due to the DeJounte Murray trade, but still, I still think that this Hawks team is really solid. They still have some other people like Bogdan Bogdanovic, Onyeka Okongwu. I still really believe in Onyeka Okongwu. I think that if Clint Capella starts to decline, I think Okongwu can take over that spot. I mean, he's proven to be a really good defender, and he even has some more offensive talent than Clint Capella, but he still hasn't got the opportunity. I really see him like, I still remember Bam Adebayo. He was the backup for Hassan Whiteside for about 3 to 4 years, but the moment they traded Hassan Whiteside away, Bam took that next step, and I think that's still possible for Onyeka Okongwu. If Clint Capella ends up being traded, I think Onyeka Okongwu can definitely step up, and overall, I don't really know if this Hawks team will make a deep run. I mean, they have a pretty solid team, especially with Trae DeJounte being such a good backcourt, but like, I don't know, can they match up against the Bucks, the Celtics, even a team like the 76ers, or like maybe not the Heat as much, or like the Cavs? I don't really know. I think that they're still gonna have to figure out some more stuff, but so far they're on a roll, and it's gonna be really interesting to see how they perform for the rest of the season and the playoffs. With that being said, that's gonna end the video. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on next time.